Genesis 33. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after. And Rachel and Joseph hid her most. And he himself passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And they wept. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw the women and the children, and said, Who are these with thee? And he said, The children whom God hath graciously given thy servants. Then the handmaids came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also and her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this company which I met? And he said, To find favor in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother, let that which thou hast be thine. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found favor in thy sight, then receive my presents at my hand. For as much as I have seen thy face, as one seeth the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me, take, I pray thee, my gift that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and that the flocks and herds with me have their young. And if they override them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servants, and I will lead on gently, accordingly to the pace of the cattle that are before me, and according to the pace of the children, until I come unto my Lord, unto Sire. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Sire. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him a house, and made both for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob named in peace to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of the Canaanite, when he came from Padan Aram, and encamped before the city. And he bought the parcel of ground where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shishep father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar, and called it Eloah Israel. Genesis 33 is the outward fruit of Genesis 32. After the night of wrestling, the Esau crisis that Jacob feared became a stage where God shows two things at once. God can change the heart of the one you fear, and God is changing Jacob from a taker into a giver/worshiper. Here's the PhD pastor reading text theology and what God is saying. Jacob approaches humility but still mixed with old instincts. Jacob sees Esau coming with 400 men and arranges his family, handmaid plus children first, Leah next, Rachel and Joseph last. That ordering shows lingering favoritism. Rachel/Joseph protected most. The text doesn't celebrate it, it's just honest about Jacob's still uneven satisfaction. Then the key shift. He himself passed over before them. This is new. Previously, Jacob used others as buffers. Now he steps out front and bows 7 times, an act of deep deference, royal/protocol language. What God is saying, transformation isn't instant. Perfection is a new direction. You may still be messy, but I'm making you courageous and responsible. Esau's surprising response, grace, where vengeance was expected. Esau ran, embraced, kissed, and they wept. This is a shock reversal. Jacob expected judgment. He received affection. The narrative wants you to feel that whiplash. Theologically, Esau became a sign that God's power is not only in Jacob, in his wrestling, but also in interior providence. God can govern outcomes and soften hostility. What God is saying, the person you fear is not sovereign over your future. I am. The family bows. Reconciliation is public and embodied. Esau sees the women and children, and Jacob answers, the children whom God hath graciously given. That's a theology of family, not entitlement, but gift. Then each group bows. This is not humiliation for humiliation's sake. It's Jacob acknowledging the wrong he did, honoring the relationship, singling peace in a culturally intelligent way. God's message, reconciliation, is not just internal feelings, it has visible actions, honor, acknowledgement, posture. The gift from taking blessings to giving blessings. Esau asked about the company, the droves. Jacob to find favor. Esau, I have enough. Keep yours. Jacob insists. The loaded line. I have seen thy face as seemeth the face of God. This is not flattery. It's theology. Jacob just named the wrestle place Peniel, face of God, because he saw God and lived. Now he says, seeing Esau's forgiving face feels like seeing God's face, meaning Esau becomes an instrument of divine mercy. Jacob experienced reconciliation as a sacramental sign of grace. This is massive. The face Jacob feared becomes the face that blesses him. Also notice the reversal of Genesis 27. In Genesis 27, Jacob deceived to take a blessing. In Genesis 33, Jacob pleads to give a gift. The word can also mean blessing in Hebrew usage in this context, returning what was wrongly taken. Jacob says, God hath dealt graciously with me, and I have enough. That enough echoes Esau, enough. The brothers are no longer fighting sacred scarcity. They're both speaking contentment. What God is saying, grace turns grasper into giver. The healed person stops living like they're never enough. The travel invitation in Jacob cautious separation. Esau offers to travel together and even provided protection. Jacob declines with a gentle explanation. The children and animals are tender. He must move slowly. That's reasonable. But the text also leaves a subtle tension. Jacob says he comes to Sire, yet he goes to Sukkot and then Shechem. Interpreters often see this as Jacob is still being cautious, possibly avoiding being drawn into Esau's territory, influence, or control. This is not necessarily cowardice. It could be wisdom. Reconciliation doesn't mean merging lives back together, especially when histories of conflict and power dynamics exist. God's message, peace does not always require proximity. You can forgive and still set wise boundaries. Sukkot Shechem, settling in the promised land step by step. Jacob builds a house, both a booth for cattle, then reaches Shechem in peace. He buys lands that matters. It's a tangible foothold in Canaan. Like Abraham purchasing a burial plot earlier, it's single permanence, not drifting. Then he builds an altar and names it Elohilah Israel, God, the God of Israel. This is the spiritual climax. Jacob, now Israel, publicly confessed the Lord as his God. After years of bargaining, running, scheming, he worships as a man, anchored. What God is saying, reconciliation is not the final goal. Worship is. I brought you through conflict to bring you back to a covenant. The chapter's main theological message. God can turn enemies into brothers, not by pretending wrong didn't happen, but by reshaping hearts and outcomes. God's blessing produces humility, not arrogance. Jacob bows. He speaks like a servant. He credits God for his children and prosperity. True repentance tries to restore what was taken. Jacob doesn't cling to wealth. He uses wealth to repair relationships. Seeing God's face can come through human mercy. Esau's forgiveness becomes a mirror of divine grace. God often lets us taste his kindness through people. Peace is compatible. Boundaries. Jacob and Esau reconcile, then walk different paths. The end of deliverance is worship and settlement in God's promise. The altar name is the point. God is Israel's God, not merely a problem solver, but the Lord of the covenant. One-line sermon. When God changes you, the face you fear becomes the face of grace, and the blessing you once stole becomes a blessing you now give, until your story ends at the altar, not an escape. Genesis 33.